The city was bright with human life, but in the middle of the crowded streets, one figure never belonged. She was small, thin, and her eyes carried the color of distant stars. Her skin was pale blue, and her hair shimmered like silver threads under the sun. She was not human, she was an alien child, and she had one strange truth about her. She never spoke. The humans who saw her every day whispered behind her back. Some said, "Maybe her voice is broken." Others said, "No, she hides something dangerous." Children pointed at her when she walked by, and adults kept their distance. The alien girl never fought back, never answered, never even looked angry. She only lowered her head and walked silently, holding her hands close to her chest. The world around her was loud with sounds, cars, voices, laughter, machines. But inside her heart there was only quiet. She lived in the corner of the city, in a small shelter the government gave to survivors. Her planet had been destroyed in a war nobody wanted to talk about. She was the only one from her world who survived. The record said she was rescued as a child from the ruins. Since then, she never spoke a single word, not even to thank the ones who saved her. The people who worked in the shelter tried everything. They gave her books, toys, and even language lessons, but she sat in silence, watching with big, scared eyes. When someone asked her a question, she only blinked. When they begged her to say her name, she stayed quiet. The silence became heavier every day. It was not the silence of a child being shy. It was the silence of a soul carrying a weight too big. At night, she would sit near the window, staring at the stars. Her lips sometimes moved as if she was whispering to them, but no sound ever came out. Her eyes looked both full of hope and full of fear. It was as if she wanted to speak, but something inside her would not allow it. The humans who watched her wondered, was she cursed or was she protecting a secret? One day, a group of children from the neighborhood followed her. They shouted, "Say something. Say anything." But the alien girl just hugged her arms and kept walking. The children threw small stones at her feet to scare her. She did not cry, she did not run, she only stopped, looked at them once with her shining eyes, and then she walked away again, leaving the bullies unsettled. That look, so silent and powerful, made them feel guilty. It was the kind of silence that spoke louder than words. The humans began to fear the silence. If she was hiding something, what could it be? If she never spoke, did it mean she was dangerous? Rumors spread quickly. "Maybe she has a weapon inside her," one man said. "Maybe she can control minds," another whispered. Soon the shelter became filled with suspicion. The alien child, who only wanted peace, became a mystery wrapped in silence. But not everyone was afraid. In the same city, a human man noticed her more than others. He saw her sitting alone under the tree near the market. He saw her drawing shapes in the dirt with her finger, shapes that looked like stars, moons, and strange animals. He felt something stir in his heart. This was not the silence of danger. This was the silence of loneliness. The man watched her for days. He noticed how she never smiled, never played, never looked free. Her world was gone, her people were gone, and now even her voice was gone. She was only a child, but she carried the sadness of 1,000 years. The man asked himself, why does no one try to give her comfort? Why does no one try to be her friend? The alien girl, unaware of his thoughts, kept walking through the city. She never looked up, never raised her chin, but sometimes when she thought no one was watching, a single tear would roll down her cheek. It would fall quietly, like a drop of rain in a desert. And in that small tear, a whole universe of sorrow lived. The city forgot her most of the time, but the man could not forget. He knew there was a story behind her silence, and deep inside he felt there was something more, something waiting to be unlocked. But how could silence be broken? What key could open the voice of a child who lost everything? The alien girl went to bed each night holding nothing but her loneliness. Her dreams were filled with broken planets, burning skies, and the sound of screams. When she woke up, she returned to silence again. Day after day, night after night. Her world never changed, and so the mystery grew stronger. Why did she never speak? Was it fear, pain, or something far more dangerous? The humans did not know, but soon they would find out. For the silence of the alien girl was not empty. It was the beginning of something that could change everything. The city had many faces, many stories, but among all the rushing people, there was one man who always slowed down. His name was Daniel, a quiet human who lived on the edge of the same district where the alien child stayed. He was not a hero, not a soldier, not a rich man. He was just a mechanic who fixed machines during the day and read books at night. But sometimes the smallest people noticed the biggest things. Daniel first saw her near the market square. The alien girl sat under the same tree every afternoon. While people walked past her as if she was invisible, Daniel's eyes kept going back to her. She was always alone, her hands tracing patterns in the dirt, circles, stars, strange symbols that no one else understood. Sometimes she watched the sky for hours, as if waiting for someone who never came. Most humans avoided her, some out of fear, others out of habit. But Daniel could not look away. Something about her silence felt heavy, like a locked door, he thought. Maybe she doesn't need answers. Maybe she just needs someone to see her. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel noticed more when the children mocked her. He saw how she didn't fight back. When the shopkeepers turned her away, he saw how she didn't argue. When the rain poured, he saw her sitting quietly, wet and trembling but never asking for help. It hurt him in a way he didn't expect. She was a child, yet her eyes carried the loneliness of an old soul. Daniel was not a man who liked to speak much either. He was used to silence, used to being overlooked. He had no family left, no children of his own, only the company of his workshop and his thoughts, and maybe that was why he noticed her more than others. Because silence recognizes silence. One evening, as the sun was setting behind the tall buildings, Daniel saw her again under the tree. The crowd had thinned, the streets were quieter. She was drawing in the dirt with a small stick. Her thin fingers moved carefully, like an artist afraid the world might break her creation. Daniel walked closer, not too close, just enough to see. The shapes were not random, they were constellations. Stars mapped in the same way astronomers drew them. But these were not human constellations. They belonged to another sky, another world. His breath caught. She was drawing her home, the place she had lost in that moment. Daniel understood her silence a little more. She was not only quiet because of fear. She was quiet because words could not carry the weight of losing an entire world. He wanted to speak to her, but he was afraid, not of her, but of breaking the fragile moment. So he stood in silence, just watching. The girl finally looked up, her glowing eyes meeting his for a second. Daniel felt as if she was looking straight into his soul. No words passed between them. But in that brief look, he felt something, trust, or maybe a plea. The next day, Daniel came back, and the day after that, he always found her in the same place. Under the same tree, he brought food once, leaving it near her. But she didn't touch it. He tried again, bringing a book with pictures of animals. She glanced at it but turned away. Still, Daniel didn't give up. He wasn't trying to force her to speak. He only wanted her to know she wasn't alone. The people in the market began to notice him. "Why do you waste time with her?" they asked. "She's dangerous, she's cursed. Leave her be." But Daniel only shook his head. He saw something no one else saw. She wasn't dangerous, she was broken. And broken things don't need fear, they need kindness. One night, while Daniel worked in his small workshop, the thought kept circling in his mind. How could he reach her? What could break the wall of silence that trapped her? Words were useless, food was useless, even books were useless. Then his eyes fell on a small creature sleeping in a box near the fire. It was a puppy, the last gift from a stray dog he once rescued. The tiny creature wagged its tail whenever it saw him. It brought him joy on the loneliest nights. And suddenly, Daniel felt a spark. Maybe what she needed was not words. Maybe what she needed was something alive, something warm, something that did not judge. The next morning, Daniel made his decision. He picked up the small puppy and held it carefully. The little dog whined softly, licking his hand. Daniel whispered, "Maybe you can do what I cannot." And with that, he walked toward the market square once more, toward the tree where the silent alien girl waited, unaware that her life was about to change. The city bustled as usual, but Daniel's steps were steady. The puppy squirmed in his arms, full of energy. As he approached the tree, he saw the alien child sitting in her usual place. Her eyes lifted slightly, noticing the strange bundle in his arms. For the first time, her head tilted in curiosity, and Daniel knew deep inside that this was the beginning of something no one could have predicted. The morning air was cool, filled with the usual noise of merchants shouting and people hurrying to buy their food. But under the tall tree near the market, the alien girl sat in silence as always. Her silver hair glistened in the sunlight, her thin arms wrapped tightly around her knees. She looked as if she wanted to disappear from the world. And that was the moment Daniel appeared, holding something that was alive, something that moved. In his arms was a tiny puppy, its fur soft and golden, its tail wagging with endless energy. The creature squirmed and licked Daniel's fingers, making little sounds that pulled smiles from anyone nearby. But the alien girl did not smile. She only stared at the small animal with wide, uncertain eyes. It was clear she had never seen anything like it before. Daniel knelt slowly, placing the puppy on the ground a short distance away. The little dog barked once, a high, happy sound that echoed across the square. The alien girl flinched at the noise. Her body tense, but the puppy did not stop. It wagged its tail and ran clumsily toward her, tripping over its own tiny paws. The crowd that usually ignored her began to notice. "What is he doing?" One woman whispered. "Giving her an animal? She'll only scare it," another said. But Daniel didn't listen. He kept his eyes on the girl, watching every small change in her face. Her lips parted slightly as the puppy reached her feet. It sniffed her toes, then licked her hand without fear. For a long moment, the alien girl froze. Her eyes shimmered with confusion, almost fear. No one had ever touched her like that, not with kindness, not with joy. The puppy barked again, tilting its head as if asking for a response. Her fingers trembled, but then slowly, carefully, she reached out. She touched the soft fur, and in that instant something broke inside her silence. It was not her voice, not yet, but her eyes widened, glowing brighter than before. Her shoulders relaxed, and for the first time since anyone could remember, the corners of her lips moved upward. A smile, small, fragile, but real, spread across her face. The crowd gasped. Some people stepped back in shock. The silent alien child. She smiled. Someone whispered. Daniel felt his heart pound. He had waited so long to see even the smallest change, and now it was here. The puppy wagged its tail harder, rolling onto its back, begging for belly rubs. The girl tilted her head, watching its playful movements with growing curiosity. Her hand moved again, stroking its stomach. The puppy yelped happily, and the girl let out something no one expected. A sound, soft, broken, but gentle, escaped her throat. It wasn't a word, but it was the first noise she had ever made. The silence around the tree turned into murmurs. "Did you hear that?" "She made a sound." Maybe the animal woke something in her. But not all voices were kind. Some muttered darkly, "What if this is dangerous? What if her voice brings destruction?" Yet Daniel ignored them all. He only saw the child's trembling hands, her shining eyes, and the tiny dog who had done what no human could. The alien girl didn't push the puppy away. Instead, she lifted it carefully, holding it against her chest. The little creature licked her chin, making her flinch again. But this time she didn't pull back. Her smile grew, soft but steady. For the first time, she looked like a child, not a ghost of one. Daniel stepped closer, his voice quiet. "He's yours," he said, though he knew she might not understand. Still, something in her eyes showed she did. She hugged the puppy tighter, as if afraid someone would take it away. The crowd began to drift apart, some shaking their heads, others whispering in awe, but Daniel stayed, his chest heavy with relief. It wasn't words, but it was a beginning that night. The alien girl didn't sit by the window in silence. Instead, she lay in her bed with the puppy curled beside her. The dog's warm body and steady breathing comforted her in a way nothing else had. For once, her dreams were not only filled with burning skies and screams. They were mixed with soft barks, wagging tails, and the strange warmth of companionship. Daniel, sitting alone in his workshop, thought about what he had seen. The smile, the sound, the spark of life in her eyes. It was more than he had hoped for, but with that hope came questions. Why had silence gripped her for so long? What was it about this small creature that freed a part of her? And most important of all, if a smile could awaken her, what would her first real word bring? Far above the city, the stars glowed cold and distant. Among them were constellations she once drew in the dirt, constellations of a world lost forever. But now, beside her heartbeat, there was another heartbeat, a small puppy who had no fear of silence. And in that simple gift, something powerful had begun. The galaxy did not know it yet. The humans in the city did not know it yet. Even Daniel himself did not fully understand it yet. But the moment the alien child smiled at the touch of a puppy, the course of 2 lives, and maybe the future of many more, had changed forever. The days after the gift were different. The alien girl no longer sat under the tree with empty hands. Now, she held the puppy close, its little tail wagging like a flag of joy. Where she once sat stiff and silent, she now moved, her fingers busy scratching behind the puppy's ears. The girl who never spoke was no longer completely trapped in silence. Daniel came often, standing nearby to watch. He saw her shoulders relax as the puppy licked her cheek. He saw her eyes brighten as the small creature chased its own tail. For the first time since she arrived in the human city, she seemed less like a shadow, less like a ghost, more like a child. But it was not just Daniel who noticed. The city noticed too, people whispered as they passed. The alien child is changing. She smiled. She made a sound. Some were curious. Others were afraid. Fear often grew quickly in human hearts, and the girl's silence had always been a mystery they did not trust. Still, the puppy didn't care about rumors. It barked happily whenever she appeared. It followed her every step, stumbling clumsily on its small paws. And slowly, the alien girl began to respond. Her lips moved in soft hums, broken notes that sounded almost like singing. Daniel watched, his chest tightening with wonder. Was this the beginning of her voice? One evening, Daniel decided to test something. He placed the puppy a little distance away, then called softly, "Come here." The puppy barked and ran, but something else happened too. The alien girl opened her mouth, and though no word came, a faint whisper-like sound followed. It was weak, cracked, but filled with effort. Daniel's eyes widened. She was trying. The puppy had become the bridge between silence and sound. The girl began to follow the puppy everywhere. When it ran through the market, she ran too, her silver hair shining in the sun. When it barked at butterflies, she chased them with a small laugh that was almost a voice. When it stumbled and fell, she picked it up gently, cradling it like something too precious to lose. For the first time, her movements carried joy. Her silence no longer looked like a prison. It looked like a door about to open, but not everyone celebrated. Some humans whispered with suspicion, "If a dog can change her, maybe her silence hides something worse. What if her first word is not safe?" Fear spread like smoke in dark alleys, and in that fear, danger was quietly building. Daniel ignored the whispers. To him, the truth was clear. She was not dangerous. She was healing, and he felt proud. Proud that the gift he gave had sparked this change. But inside, he also worried. What if the city tried to take the puppy away? What if they decided her silence should never be broken? That night, Daniel dreamed uneasily. He saw the girl standing in a field of stars. The puppy barking at her feet, she opened her mouth to speak. And the sound that came out was not a word, but a powerful wave of light. It shattered the stars around her. Daniel woke up in sweat, his heart racing. He told himself it was only a dream. But deep down, the fear stayed. Meanwhile, the alien girl began to change in other ways. She no longer drew only stars in the dirt. Now she drew the puppy too, simple lines of its wagging tail and floppy ears. Sometimes she pressed her forehead against its fur and closed her eyes, as if telling it secrets no one else could hear. Daniel often wondered if she was speaking in her mind, if the puppy was listening to the voice she refused to share with the world. One day, as the sun was setting, something new happened. The puppy barked, then whined as it couldn't reach a fruit rolling down the street. The alien girl bent to pick it up, and for the first time, she made a clear sound, a laugh, small, soft but real. Daniel froze, his heart thundering. The people nearby stopped too, shocked. The silent alien child had laughed. It was not a weapon, not a curse, not danger. It was the sound of life returning. But the crowd's reaction was divided. Some smiled, touched by the innocent sound. Others frowned, fear rising again. "If she can laugh, she can speak," one man muttered. "And if she speaks, what will she unleash?" The alien girl did not notice the tension. Her attention was only on the puppy. She hugged it tightly, whispering soft tones that were not words but carried meaning. Her bond with the small creature grew stronger every day, and in that bond a door was slowly opening. A door to something no one fully understood yet. Daniel stood at the edge of the square, watching as the girl lifted the puppy into the fading sunlight. Her silver hair glowed. Her eyes shone with a light that was no longer only sadness. For the first time, she looked like she belonged to the world. But Daniel's unease did not fade. He knew the city was watching. He knew whispers were turning into questions, and he feared what might come when the alien girl's silence finally broke. The first bond was made, but bonds are tested, and soon, both the human and the alien child would learn that happiness always draws shadows, and silence once broken can never be put back again. The bond between the alien girl and the puppy grew stronger each day. She walked with it in the market, played with it under the tree, and even held it close at night. Her silence was no longer empty. It was filled with the soft barks and wagging tail of her new friend, and slowly, she began to hum. soft, broken sounds that were almost like forgotten songs. Daniel saw her change and hope filled his heart. But hope has a way of drawing shadows. At first, the whispers in the city were small. She laughed once, someone said. She's learning to make sounds, another added. But with whispers came fear. What if her voice is not safe? What if she was silent all this time because she hides a weapon? Rumors grew like weeds and suspicion thickened in the air. Daniel tried to ignore it. He told himself the people only feared what they did not understand. But deep inside, he too wondered about the weight of her silence. Why had she never spoken, not even a single word? And why now, with the puppy, was that silence starting to break? The answer arrived one night, carried by the sound of engines in the sky. Strange lights flickered above the city. They were not human ships, their forms were sharp and dark. Gliding through the clouds like predators, Daniel, working late in his workshop, heard the distant hum and felt his chest tighten. Something was wrong. The next morning, soldiers appeared at the market. But they were not human soldiers. They were tall figures with armor that shimmered black, their eyes glowing with the same light as the alien girls. Gasps filled the streets as people recognized them. They're from her world, someone whispered. I thought her people were gone, another said. But these soldiers had survived and they had come for her. The alien girl froze when she saw them. Her arms clutched the puppy tighter, her eyes wide with terror. She trembled not with surprise but with recognition. Daniel realized at once she knew them. They were not strangers. They were the shadows from her past. The leader of the soldiers stepped forward, his voice cold and heavy. There she is, he said, pointing at her. The child who carries the voice, the crowd gasped. The voice? What does that mean? People muttered, but Daniel's heart dropped. The soldiers had not come to rescue her. They had come to claim her. The girl backed away, shaking her head violently. She pressed her forehead to the puppy's fur as if it could protect her. Her silence returned, heavier than ever. Daniel rushed forward, placing himself between her and the soldiers. She's just a child, he said, his voice firm. But the leader's glowing eyes narrowed. You do not understand, human, the soldier growled. She holds power that must not awaken. The puppy barked at the soldiers. Small but brave, the alien girl whimpered, holding it tighter. Daniel looked at her and then at the soldiers. What power? She hasn't spoken a word since she came here, he said. The soldier's reply was sharp. Exactly, her silence is the seal. If she speaks, if her voice is heard, entire worlds could change. The market grew restless. People stepping back in fear. Some shouted, take her away before she destroys us. Others cried, she's just a child. The air filled with panic, but Daniel's focus stayed on the girl. She looked at him with pleading eyes, eyes that begged, don't let them take me. For the first time, Daniel understood the truth. Her silence was not natural, it was forced. A wall to keep something hidden, and now? That wall was beginning to crack. The puppy had given her courage, but courage also meant danger. The soldiers advanced, their weapons humming with strange energy. The girl whimpered louder, her lips trembling as if trying to form words. Daniel held out his arms, standing tall. She belongs here now, he said. But the leader's voice thundered, if she speaks, it will not only be your city, it will be your world that trembles. The tension was unbearable. The girl shook violently, the puppy barking in her arms. Daniel saw it clearly. She was caught between fear and the need to finally release her voice. The soldiers stepped closer, their shadows falling over her. The crowd held its breath, and in that moment, Daniel realized something terrifying. The silence was ending whether they wanted it to or not. The alien girl squeezed her eyes shut, her mouth opening slightly. A sound began to rise in her throat, not a laugh, not a hum, but something far stronger. The soldiers froze, their eyes widening. Stop her, the leader shouted, but Daniel moved first, wrapping his arms protectively around her. The sound faded back into silence. She had stopped herself at the last moment. The crowd erupted in chaos. Some cheered that she had resisted. Others screamed that she was too dangerous to stay. The soldiers pulled back but did not leave. Their leader's words echoed like a curse. This silence will not hold forever, he warned. And then they vanished into the shadows, but Daniel knew they would return. The alien girl buried her face in the puppy's fur, shaking with fear. Daniel held her shoulder gently, whispering, "You're safe." But inside he was not sure. He had seen the fear in the soldier's eyes when her lips had parted. He had felt the weight of her trembling voice. And he knew now that her silence was not only a mystery, it was a storm waiting to break. The city did not sleep after the soldiers appeared. Fear spread through the streets like fire in dry grass. People whispered in alleys, in markets, even in their homes. The alien child carries a dangerous voice. If she speaks, the world will tremble. Some wanted her gone, others wanted her locked away, but only a few saw her for what she truly was, a scared child clutching her puppy for safety. Daniel stayed close to her. He knew the soldiers would return, and he knew the city was turning against her. But when he looked into her glowing eyes, he also knew something else. Her silence was not a curse, it was pain. And pain can only stay hidden for so long. The puppy became her only comfort. When the streets grew hostile, she hid with it under the tree. When voices shouted at her, she buried her face in its fur. The small animal never judged, never questioned, never feared her. And every time it barked, a spark lit in her eyes. A spark that said, I want to speak. But I'm afraid. The soldiers came again at dawn. Their ships darkened the sky, their boots shaking the ground. The market fell silent as they surrounded the square. The leader's voice rang out like thunder. The child will come with us. Her silence cannot last. And her voice must be contained. Daniel stepped forward, his jaw tight. She is not your prisoner, he said. She belongs here, not with you. The leader's glowing eyes narrowed. You do not understand, human. If her first word is spoken, it will not only echo, it will awaken. It will carry power that your kind cannot control. The alien girl shook her head. Tears running down her pale blue cheeks, she hugged the puppy close, whispering sounds that were almost words. The soldiers moved closer, their weapons humming. The crowd pressed back in fear, some shouting for her to be taken, others begging for mercy. Daniel spread his arms, protecting her. You'll have to go through me, he said. But the soldiers did not stop. The puppy barked sharply, its tiny body trembling but fearless. The alien girl's lips parted, a sound rising in her throat. Her silence cracked like glass under pressure. The leader froze, his face tightening in alarm. Stop her, he shouted. But it was too late. The girl screamed, not of fear but of defiance. It was one single word, broken but clear. No. The sound was small, yet it was not small at all. It rolled through the air like a wave. The ground shook, the air vibrated, and the soldiers stumbled back, their black armor cracked. Their weapons flickered. The crowd gasped in terror. Covering their ears, Daniel stood frozen. The words still ringing in his bones, the puppy barked with joy. As if proud of her, the alien girl trembled. Her chest heaving, her voice had broken free. And in that one word, Daniel realized the truth. Her voice was not just sound, it carried energy, power older than war, a voice that could command, heal, or destroy. No wonder her people had forced silence upon her. No wonder the soldiers feared it. The leader staggered, clutching his chest. His glowing eyes dimmed, his voice shaking. She cannot be allowed to speak again, he growled. But fear was in his tone now. Not control, he gave a signal, and the soldiers retreated, their dark forms vanishing into the ships above. The sky cleared, but the tension remained. The market square was silent. Every human eye turned toward the girl, some faces pale with awe, others twisted with fear. She spoke, someone whispered. And look what it did. What if her next word destroys us all? Another said. The girl looked at Daniel, tears shining in her eyes. Her lips trembled, and this time, another word came. It was soft, weak, but clear. Friend. Daniel's heart broke and healed at once. She had spoken for the first time, and her second word was not anger, not destruction, but hope. The puppy barked, wagging its tail furiously as if celebrating. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer or to run, but Daniel knew. This was not the beginning of danger. It was the beginning of her voice. He knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder. You're safe, he whispered. Her glowing eyes softened. She touched the puppy's head, then looked at Daniel again. The silence around her was gone. She was no longer only the silent alien child. She was a child with a voice, but deep in the shadows of the city. Daniel knew the soldiers would return. They had seen her speak. They had felt her power. They would never allow her voice to spread. And the humans, too, were divided. Some would want to protect her, others would want her silenced forever. The girl sat with the puppy in her lap, repeating the words softly. Friend, friend, friend. Each time the air vibrated, but gentler now. Like a song instead of a storm, Daniel listened, his heart heavy but hopeful. He knew this was only the beginning. Her silence was broken, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The market square remained silent long after the soldiers left. The echoes of the alien girl's first words still trembled in the air. "No," she had cried, breaking her silence. And then she had spoken again. "Friend," one word of defiance, one word of hope. Both carried power. Both changed everything. The humans around her didn't know what to believe. Some whispered in fear, "If she speaks again, will the city fall?" Others whispered in awe. Her voice broke soldiers apart. But it called a human friend. No one could deny the truth. Her silence was gone. The mystery that haunted the city had ended. But a new question had begun. What would her voice mean for the future? The alien girl herself sat quietly, the puppy curled in her lap, her lips still trembling from the effort of speaking. She stroked the animal's soft fur and repeated softly, "Friend, friend." Each time the word grew gentler, like a lullaby. Her eyes glowed with something new, not only fear but courage. Daniel stayed by her side. He had protected her before, but now he felt something stronger. He was not only protecting her silence, he was protecting her voice. She looked at him with trust, and he realized the truth. The first word she had chosen to say after years of silence was for him. She had called him her friend. It was a gift more powerful than any weapon. The city, however, remained divided. Some wanted to drive her out before the soldiers returned. Others argued she should be kept safe, hidden, and a few believed she was the beginning of something greater. The leaders held urgent meetings, but none of them had the courage to speak to the girl directly. They only feared what her voice might unleash. Daniel refused to let their fear decide her fate one evening. He sat with her under the tree where it had all begun. The puppy slept at her feet. The stars above glittered and the air was quiet. Daniel spoke softly, "You have a gift. The soldiers fear it, the people fear it, but I don't. I believe your voice is not made to destroy. It is made to heal." The girl looked at him with wide eyes, her lips parted, and another word came. "Home," she whispered. Daniel's throat tightened. Her home was gone, her people scattered. Her planet destroyed, but by speaking the word, she had carried it back into existence. Not in stone or fire, but in memory and hope. The next days brought change. The girl began to speak more, not in full sentences, but in words that mattered. She pointed at the puppy and said, "Safe." She touched the stars she drew in the dirt and said, "Dream." She looked at Daniel and said, "Human." Each word carried a soft vibration, not dangerous, but alive. It was as if her voice itself carried the spirit of her lost world. And with each word, she rebuilt a part of herself. The humans who once feared her began to soften. Mothers brought bread, children came closer. They discovered that when she spoke gentle words, the air felt lighter, flowers seemed to bloom brighter. Even broken machines sparked back to life under her voice. Her power was not only destruction, it was creation. And slowly, hearts that once feared her began to open. But danger was not gone. The soldiers of her kind still lingered in the stars, watching, waiting. They feared her voice would unite humans and aliens. And for them, unity was more dangerous than war. Daniel knew they would return, but he also knew the girl was no longer helpless. She was no longer only the silent alien child. She was a child who had found her voice, and with her voice, she had already begun to change everything. One morning, as the sun rose over the city, Daniel found her standing in the square. The puppy barked at her feet. People gathered, curious and cautious. The girl looked around, her silver hair glowing in the light. She placed a hand over her chest and spoke one word. Together, the word spread like wind. The people felt it in their bones. Their fear cracked, their suspicion melted. It was not just a sound, it was a promise. Daniel's eyes burned with pride. He realized then what the soldiers had always feared. Not that her voice could destroy, but that her voice could unite. The puppy barked again, wagging its tail. The girl laughed softly, the sound clear and warm. The crowd smiled for the first time. For the first time, she was not an outsider. She was not a curse, she was hope, and so a new story began. The story of an alien child who had never spoken, and a human who gave her the gift of a puppy, a gift that broke silence, built trust, and created a bridge between worlds. Her voice was still fragile, still young, but it was growing. Every word she spoke was a seed. Seeds of peace, seeds of friendship, seeds of a new future. The galaxy would not forgive easily. The soldiers would return, the wars would not stop. But Daniel believed something stronger than fear had been born. A bond between human, alien, and even the smallest of creatures. A bond that proved sometimes the simplest gift, like a puppy, can change the universe. And as the stars watched from above, the alien girl whispered once more, holding her puppy close. "Friend." Her voice was clear, steady, and full of promise. And this time the whole world listened.